Today I'm going to be talking about a book called The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold. So it's actually volume 1, which means it's a start of a series. I have to admit I actually thought it's a standalone book, but to be honest, it wasn't my idea to read this book. This book was actually recommended to me by my boss in work, so I was kind of like, okay, I probably should read it. Also, if you find this strange, I work in a bookshop, so yeah, we talk there about books a lot. And yeah, this book belongs to the young adult genre. It's also fantasy, and I have to admit that the fantasy young adult genre is not exactly my thing, but I believe every genre has some good books in it, so I was like, let's read this. When it comes to the author Ransom Riggs, I have to admit I never read any of his other books. Of course I know about Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, because it was like really popular at one point. I also watched the movie when it came out, but to be honest, I don't remember that movie that much. There's like one thing I remember from the movie, that is this like one moment when Tim Burton shows up, and I think they throw like a monster at him. But yeah, I heard about this author, I heard about his previous book series, so I was definitely curious. Now let's talk about what is this book actually about. So the main character is a 17-year-old Leopold. He has a quite a toxic father who is a motivational speaker and a success coach, which does sound like a nightmare, and it actually is. Because his father sees him only as a disappointment, because Leopold doesn't have some big ambitions in his life. Or at least the ambitions that Leopold has definitely don't match with his father's. So yeah, his father really doesn't like him, and he just really sees him as a failure, and is not surprised that our poor Leopold actually quite believes that. Because tell someone they are disappointment long enough, and well, they will definitely feel like that eventually. So yeah, he has a toxic father and he feels quite lost in his own life. But he also has these moments when he sees some really weird stuff, and he thinks that those moments are most likely some kind of hallucinations, because well, no one else can see them. Leopold doesn't feel really good about that. Also, all of these hallucinations are revolving around the Underworld, which is a world he knows from TV show that he watched on VHS tapes that he discovered after his mother died when he was only 12. Those tapes belonged to her, and when he was a kid, he was watching them all the time. And because of that, he truly believed in Underworld, and he expected that one day he is truly going to get the key from the world. It's kinda like when Harry Potter gets the letter from Hogwarts, right? Except the key never really shows up, and Leopold, instead of going to Underworld, goes to therapist and starts to fight his hallucinations, which eventually actually disappear. And those hallucinations are supposed to be just a trauma response to his mother passing when he was just really young. Now as a 70-year-old, he doesn't believe in Underworld anymore, but the hallucinations are back again. Or are they hallucinations? Who knows? Read the book to find out. But spoiler alert, it's a fantasy series, so yeah. Also, most of this story is happening in Los Angeles, and I can't confirm that, but it seemed to me that the author has quite attention for detail and is always trying to mention where the story is happening. So I guess if you are from Los Angeles or around this area, you might enjoy this book even more, because you know where exactly the story takes place, which is nice. Unfortunately, I never take one step into America, so for me it just had nice America vibes. Now let's talk about the cover of this book, because personally I just really like this cover. I mean, as you can see, it was made to look as an old VHS tape, and I really appreciate that. The cover actually matches what's happening in the book, but also it just looks really cool, you know? I like how the dog looks like it was kind of taped in there. It also has this nice retro 90s vibes, which I think the whole book was trying to go for, so it also fits the atmosphere in the book. Yeah, also here is shown this like coin that is actually important in the story. I also like how it looks like an old VHS tape, so here you can see this like little like a damaged spots. It's also kind of practical because like I'm looking at these corners right now and I'm not sure what is part of the design and what is like my own doing. Like I'm always trying to take a good care of the books, but you know, almost every book just gets a little bit damaged, for example at the corners. And yeah, here it just looks like part of the design. There was also a few moments when I was like, oh my gosh, did I actually did something to this book? And then I would look closer and I would find out it was actually just the design. So yeah, but it has a really nice cover and I think I can't really complain. So what do I think about this book? Well, it's nice. I guess the story is nice. It's easy to read. I really like the writing style. Like there were few moments when I was kind of cringing during the conversations because it was like those conversations were like typical for teenagers. And there's nothing bad about that. It's just I also read Czech version of this book, but sometimes when this kind of stuff gets translated to Czech language, it just sounds really cringe. I'm not sure how it was written in the English, but it was definitely better than what I read. But this is not something I can blame the author for. Now, there's one thing that a lot of people who read this book talk about, I guess, and that's the weirdness of this book. I think that's also one of the selling points, like one of my friends, she read this book too, because she also get it recommended from the bus, and when she was reading this book she was always like, oh my gosh, it's so weird, I'm not sure what's happening, it's absolutely crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening in this book? I was really curious, but then I read this book and I don't think it was too weird. Yeah, sure, at the start of the book there are some kind of a strange stuff happening, like burning raccoon, or I don't know, he sees. This is just really the start of the book, these are not some big spoilers or anything. But for example, he sees a woman that has wings on her back. And no one else can see those wings. And yeah, sure, it's weird, but if I would see this stuff in real life, I would be freaking out. But I don't feel like it's that weird. It's just some fantasy stuff, I don't know. The first half of the book is or the first third of the book is this weird stuff happening. And I guess it does have some kind of atmosphere, but I personally just didn't find it that weird. Or I definitely wasn't even confused about what's going on. It was yeah, he's just living his life and he sees these weird things. And there's just a basic question about it. Are they hallucinations or are they not? That's all. I don't know. I didn't find this confusing at all. But that's just me. So this book also belongs to the genre of magical realism, at least according to Goodreads. And I can see it, because magical realism is about putting ordinary and unordinary together. However, I don't know, I still felt like I'm just reading a fantasy book here. Also, it seemed to me like the author is just putting random stuff together to create the fantastical part of the book, like mysterious VH tapes, lizard-looking people, magical knives, and other stuff. So yeah, he just mixes the normal stuff with the magical stuff, but not in some actually crazy way. For example, there is a guy wearing Metallica t-shirt while being surrounded by magical objects, but they are still in America. I found it quite simple, but it does create a cool urban fantasy aesthetic, so why not? Also, small spoiler, I like the sentient frog, that was really cute. Now about the characters. So I really liked Leopold. He is struggling a lot, but he is pushing through, and it's nice to see him eventually becoming more confident. His backstory is not the most original, but I guess that was the point, considering he is kinda supposed to be the chosen one. And chosen ones usually have the worst backstory ever, with at least one parent dead. As for the rest of the characters, I don't think anyone was really annoying me. I mean, the father, sure, but he is supposed to be the bad guy, so yeah. The rest of them were nice. I like how they were supportive of Leopold, but in general, not the most original characters ever. And now to the story. Anytime the book revolved around his mother's death and what she left to him, it was really fun. As for the chosen one trope, I don't know, maybe it was handled a bit differently than in other books, but in general I'm not fan of this trope. Also, I was thinking that the story structure is a bit messy, some characters could show up earlier, for example, because at the end they might feel a bit forced when they sort of show up out of nowhere. And now, this part will contain some spoilers, so you can skip this if you did not read the book yet. I have to admit, when I first read the book, I felt like stuff is just happening randomly. But later I thought about it, and it kinda does make sense. So Leopold believes he should be the chosen one because he watched a TV show as a kid. Nothing ever happens during his childhood, but then he actually finds his way into Sunderland, even though kinda randomly. He goes there, finds out he's a good with magic, and not even him, but his friend is like, you have to be the chosen one. And that was a moment I felt like I was reading a book for a younger audience, and I felt like Leopold and his friend are really kinda acting like 14-year-olds. And I don't mean this badly, I was just kinda confused. Also, I was wondering, why the heck should he be the chosen one? I don't know, I don't really like this trope too much, so I was like, okay, Leopold is nice kid, but why the chosen one? Well, eventually everything goes wrong. Leopold is casted out of the Sunderland, but he does not give up and follows the instruction of his mother and goes to Sunderworld a different way. And after that, he randomly finds two people who are eager to help him, and suddenly he actually might be the chosen one. And I mean, alright. But I was kind of wondering what was the point of the whole first part of the book, where he randomly gets into Thunderworld by following Raccoon as some kind of American Alice in Wonderland, when eventually he gets there differently anyway. And maybe I'm just overthinking this, but perhaps during the first visit, Leopold had to lose the illusion of the world he had when he was a kid, so he could gain confidence differently than simply by being the most special magician ever. Except he might be the most special magician ever, as was hinted later in the book, so whatever. I don't really understand the story structure of this book, but it was fun. Overall, it's a fun, adventurous urban fantasy with some mystery mixed in that really get me invested, but perhaps not enough to read the rest of the series. I got kinda hooked completely at the end, but I don't know. I think I enjoyed this more as a standalone book or as a TV series. If it would be a TV show, I think I would watch more, but as a book series, I don't know. I guess I'm just not that invested if Leopold Barry is the chosen one of the Thunderworld. Like, maybe he is, maybe he's not, maybe he just hit himself really hard in the head one day and he is now hallucinating this whole thing. But either way, I'm probably not going to find out. But if you want some simple, quite fast-paced retro adventure reading for a free Sunday, why not? It's definitely not a bad book. It's like 7 out of 10, but mostly for the vibes. Well, and this is everything from me today. Bye!